The Savannah Secret, a new beginning. Ethan Miller ran his hand over the worn, sun-baked wood of the porch railing, the grain rough beneath his fingers. He inhaled deeply, pulling in the familiar, dense air of Savannah, a complex mix of salt marsh, jasmine, and warm earth. It was a world away from the sterile, filtered atmosphere of his corner office on the 70th floor of a Chicago skyscraper. Just 6 months ago, he had been a titan of industry, a man whose every minute was tracked by an assistant and whose worth was calculated daily by the stock market. Now, his schedule revolved around school pickups, mastering the temperamental heat of a commercial oven, and, most importantly, the quiet rhythm of his family. He wore faded jeans and a comfortable linen shirt, trading Italian bespoke suits for a life where flour and savory filling often dusted his shoulders. The change was stark, almost absurd. Miller Global was still his, but he managed its billions from a laptop propped on a kitchen counter, often within earshot of his 9-year-old son, Leo, arguing with his mother, Clara, about whether to add betrayal cheese to the savory pies. Yet, standing on this modest porch, the sounds of Clara's humming from the kitchen and Leo's laughter from the yard washing over him, Ethan felt a profound sense of peace. The persistent emptiness that had chased him across continents was gone. He had returned to Savannah a decade after a youthful mistake, drawn back by an impossible coincidence. The identical birthmark shared by him and the boy selling snacks in the town square. That mark had ripped a hole through the carefully constructed wall of his past, revealing a son he never knew existed, and a woman he never stopped loving. Now married to Clara and fully committed to Leo, the real challenge had begun. He hadn't just changed locations, he had changed his entire definition of success. He was no longer building an empire of finance. He was building something fragile, precious, and infinitely more valuable. A family, a home, and a successful little empire built entirely on love, hustle, and the world's best savory pies. But the corporate world he left behind wasn't ready to let go, and the quiet life they were building was about to face its first real test. The Savannah Secret. Ethan stepped off the private jet, feeling the humid heat of Savannah wrap around his body like a forgotten embrace. The air was different here, denser, laden with memories and the smell of wet earth, mixed with the fragrance of flowers growing around the small airport. His hometown, he hadn't been back in over a decade. He walked onto the tarmac with slow, almost hesitant steps, as if the ground might crumble beneath his feet. Everything around him seemed smaller than he remembered. The modest terminal, the distant mountains, even the sky seemed closer. Or perhaps it was he who had grown too big for this place. Despite a life of luxury and countless achievements, something unsettled him. A persistent feeling that had followed him for months, maybe years, whispering in his mind during sleepless nights. Perhaps it was repressed longing, buried under layers of success and ambition, or the emptiness that neither money, nor business, deals, nor accolades could fill. He decided to take a vacation away from the spotlight, ignoring his secretary's protests and his partner's confused looks. He needed to find a piece of who he used to be, or discover if that piece still existed. Parking his rental car in the town's central square, Ethan turned off the engine and sat for a moment, just watching. The square was the same green-painted wooden benches, the same leafy trees offering shade, the same colorful kiosks where local vendors offered their wares. Yet at the same time, everything looked different through his adult eyes. He got out of the car, locked the door, and walked slowly along the uneven stone pavement. The square's movement was quiet. A few families strolling, elderly people chatting on the benches, children running between the trees. So different from the frantic hustle of Chicago, where every second had a price. It was then that something caught his attention. A frail boy, who looked about 9 years old, walked among the kiosk tables with a styrofoam box in his hands. His thin legs moved with determination, stopping at each group of people. He wore a worn-out shirt, faded at the sleeves, and scuffed sandals that had seen better days. But his face was pure light, bright eyes, a smile that refused to be defeated. "Savory pies here! Who wants a savory pie?" the boy called out in a clear voice, without shame or embarrassment. Ethan stopped where he was, watching. There was something about the boy that held him there. It wasn't pity. It wasn't mere curiosity. It was something deeper, more visceral. Something he couldn't name. The boy approached, and Ethan could see him better. Light brown hair that was a bit long, a thin but expressive face. Small hands, carefully holding the styrofoam box. "Sir, would you like to buy a meat pie? They're fresh," the boy asked with a genuine smile that illuminated his face even more. Ethan looked at him, feeling a strange, nonsensical connection. He noticed the watchful brown eyes, the way the boy tilted his head slightly when speaking, even the way his fingers nervously drummed on the side of the box. Everything seemed vaguely familiar, but he couldn't pinpoint why. "Sure," Ethan replied, his voice softer than he intended. "How many do you have?" The boy's eyes lit up. 12, sir, but I can just sell you one, if you like. Only $5 each." There was pride in the boy's voice as he made his offer, a dignity Ethan immediately recognized. It wasn't a plea for charity. It was an honest, fair commercial transaction. Ethan smiled, genuinely impressed by the child's determination. "Give me all of them, and keep the change." He held out a $100 bill, watching the boy's reaction. The boy's eyes widened, his smile growing until it seemed too big for his small face. "Seriously? All of them?" He looked at the pies, then back at Ethan, as if he couldn't believe what was happening. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much." The sheer joy in those eyes made something clutch at Ethan's chest. "My name is Leo," the boy said, still smiling as he packed the pies into a plastic bag. "What's yours?" "Ethan." He hesitated for a moment, watching how carefully Leo worked, ensuring all the pies were snug. "Do you always come here?" "Every day, sir. It's to help my mom," Leo replied simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "She makes the pies, and I sell them on the street. We live nearby." The boy pointed to a narrow alley behind a cluster of modest houses, their walls peeling and roofs patched. There was no shame in his gesture, just a fact being shared. Ethan followed the gesture with his eyes, feeling a tightness in his chest. This young boy already carried responsibilities many children his age couldn't even imagine. And yet there was light in his eyes, hope in his smile. It was in that moment, as Leo tucked the last pie into the bag, that Ethan noticed something that made his world stop. A mark on Leo's neck, a small, oval mark, a darker shade than the surrounding skin, located exactly on the right side of his neck, just below the ear. It was exactly identical to the mark Ethan had since birth, exactly in the same place. The air seemed to rush from his lungs. Ethan felt his hands go cold, his heart pound. It couldn't be. It was impossible. Thousands of people had birthmarks. It was just an absurd, even cruel coincidence. But something inside him, some primitive instinct, screamed that it was no coincidence. "This mark," Ethan heard his own voice, distant and trembling. "That mark on your neck. Is it a birthmark?" Leo instinctively brought his hand to his neck, touching the mark as if to confirm it was still there. "This one?" "Yes, sir. My mom says I was born with it." "Why? Do you have one too?" The question was innocent, curious, but it hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. "Nothing. I just found it curious." Ethan quickly shook his head, trying to hide the whirlwind of emotions threatening to explode. His mind raced in 1,000 different directions, making calculations, searching for memories, trying to find a rational explanation for the impossible, while Leo continued to talk about his day, about how some people were kind and others not so much, about how his mother made the best pies in town. Ethan could barely process the words. Leo's voice was a distant buzz, while colliding thoughts dominated his mind. 9 years. The boy was about 9 years old, and 10 years ago, Ethan had spent a night in Savannah. A night he had tried to bury, forget, pretend never happened. A night with... No, it couldn't be. Ethan felt a mix of curiosity and unease consume him. The coincidence was so absurd, so statistically improbable, that he could hardly believe it. Why did this boy seem so familiar? Why was there something in the shape of his face, the way he smiled, that echoed something within him? And why did he feel an inexplicable, almost suffocating weight just looking at him? "Sir, are you okay?" Leo's voice brought him back to reality. Yes, sorry. I got distracted." Ethan forced a smile, accepting the bag of pies. His fingers were trembling slightly. "It's okay. Well, thanks again for the purchase. You're very nice." Leo gave one last radiant smile before turning away. "I have to go sell more somewhere else. See you later, Mr. Ethan." And just like that, with the lightness of a child who doesn't carry the weight of the world on his shoulders, Leo ran off across the square, his empty styrofoam box swinging in his hands. Ethan stood there, frozen in the middle of the square, with a bag of meat pies in his hands and a whirlwind in his chest. People walked around him. Life continued its normal flow, but he was trapped in that moment, in that impossible revelation. His hand involuntarily went to his own neck, touching the birthmark that had always been there, which had always just been a genetic peculiarity of no importance. Now, suddenly, it seemed to carry the weight of a secret he didn't even know existed. Lost in thought, Ethan walked slowly to a nearby bench and sat down, still holding the bag of pies. Something inside him said this encounter was not by chance. It couldn't be. But if it wasn't chance, then what was it? And more importantly, what should he do now? He looked in the direction where Leo had disappeared, then toward the alley the boy had pointed to as his home. A decision was forming in his mind, still hazy, but increasingly clear. He needed to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt, no matter what he discovered. That boy, with his radiant smile and identical mark, deserved answers. And Ethan, for the first time in a decade, wanted them too. The Savannah sun was still hot overhead, but Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. His life, so carefully constructed and controlled, was about to fall apart, or, finally, make sense. And all because of a boy selling meat pies in a square. Skip to the confrontation between Ethan and Clara for brevity and impact, as requested by the original text format. Clara emerged from the doorway leading to the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dishcloth. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple bun, and her face held the expression of a woman facing life with courage and determination. But as her eyes met Ethan's, the dishcloth fell from her hands. Ethan too froze. For a moment, the world around them seemed to stop. He recognized her immediately, even after so many years. Clara's eyes, brown and deep, were wide, and her breath caught in her throat. "Ethan," she murmured, as if disbelieving what she saw. Ethan felt like he had been punched in the stomach. "Clara, is that you?" His voice was low, almost rough. Leo looked from one to the other, confused. "Do you two already know each other?" Clara blinked quickly, trying to regain her composure. "Leo, darling, why did you bring him here?" She crouched down to his height, holding his shoulders with trembling hands. "He wanted to meet you, Mom. He bought all the pies. Isn't that nice?" Ethan stepped forward, still in shock. "Clara, I didn't expect to find you here." She slowly stood up, trying to hide the turmoil within her. I didn't expect it either. What are you doing here, Ethan? It's a long story, he replied, looking away for a moment before facing her again. But, Clara, I need to talk to you, privately. Clara quickly glanced at Leo, clearly nervous. Leo, why don't you go take a shower while I talk to the client? Okay, Mom. The boy shrugged and ran to the back of the house, leaving the two of them alone. As soon as Leo was out of sight, Ethan asked the question that tormented him. Leo is my son, isn't he? Clara pressed the dishcloth against her chest, as if trying to shield herself from the intensity of the question. Her eyes welled up with unshed tears, but she maintained her firm posture. Ethan, it's not that simple. Simple? He took a step forward, his voice filled with disbelief and emotion. Clara, he has the same birthmark as me. In the same place. How can that be a coincidence? Clara looked away, as if searching for the right words. I didn't want to interfere with your life, Ethan. You were so focused on your dreams, your career. I didn't want you to think I was trying to trap you in any way. Trap me? He shook his head, trying to process what he was hearing. Clara, we are talking about a son. You didn't think I had the right to know? She sighed deeply, tears now escaping her eyes. I thought I was doing what was best. I knew you would be successful, that your life would change completely. And I didn't want to be an obstacle. Ethan ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. Don't you understand? All these years I could have been here, could have helped you both. I lost so much time, Clara. And now I don't even know how to begin. Clara finally looked at him with a mixture of regret and firmness. Ethan, do you think it was easy for me? Raising Leo alone, looking at him every day and seeing you. I did what I thought was right. The silence that followed was heavy, interrupted only by the distant sounds of children playing in the street. Ethan felt there were so many unspoken words between them, so many things that needed to be explained. But in that moment, he could only think of the boy. I want to know my son, Clara. I want to be a part of his life. No matter what happened in the past, I will not run away. Clara watched Ethan for a long moment, as if trying to gauge the sincerity of his words. Finally, she nodded slowly. All right, Ethan, but take it slow. Leo doesn't know anything. Ethan took a deep breath, relieved, and at the same time, anxious about what would happen next. He knew the journey to win over his son was just beginning, ending with the final paragraph where the family embraces, as it represents the resolution of the conflict. That sunny morning, in the heart of Savannah, a family was rebuilt. And between laughter and promises of a better future, Ethan realized that true wealth was not in what he had achieved with his businesses, was not in bank accounts or properties. It was there, in that hug, in that moment, in that of. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan felt truly rich. Continuation. The new reality. The embrace in Clara's simple kitchen had been a promise, but a promise was only the beginning. For Ethan, a billionaire used to controlling international markets, this new life was a lesson in humility and patience. He didn't just move in, he carefully began the process of integration. Settling into Savannah, Ethan canceled his flight back to Chicago and bought a classic, spacious house a few blocks from Clara's alley. Big enough for comfort, but still nestled in the heart of the community. He immediately used his influence to quietly invest in the neighborhood, starting with the central square. First, he replaced all the broken, uneven stone pavement. Next, he commissioned local artists to repaint the colorful kiosks. His biggest project, however, was for Leo. He had a sleek, custom-built food cart made, a savory pie stand with a bright logo and modern equipment, ready for Clara to use at the local market, fulfilling Leo's original dream. Clara watched him with a mix of awe and trepidation. "You're moving too fast, Ethan," she warned one evening, while he was struggling to assemble a complex gaming chair for Leo. You can't buy back 10 years in 10 days. I know, he admitted, his brow furrowed not from the chair, but from the weight of her words. But this is how I know how to help. I build things, Clara, and I want to build a better life for you and Leo. I won't forget the past, but I'll make sure our future is different. Earning Leo's trust. With Leo, Ethan focused on being present. He traded his board meetings for parent-teacher conferences and his corporate jet for driving Leo to school. The biggest shift came when he realized Leo didn't need a tycoon. He needed a dad. One afternoon, while teaching Leo how to shoot a basketball in the backyard, Leo paused and looked at him. Do you still have those big, fancy cars? I do, Ethan replied, bouncing the ball. Why don't you bring them here? Leo asked, his voice hinting at the allure of the unknown luxury. Ethan crouched down. Because I'm not here for the cars, son. I'm here for the best savory pies in Savannah and for the guy who sells them. He pointed to the birthmark on his own neck. And because we share this special mark, the stuff back in Chicago, that's a job. This, he gestured to the backyard, the simple life. This is where I belong now. Do you believe me? Leo looked at him, searching. Yeah, he finally nodded, a genuine, small smile spreading across his face. I think I do. A second chance at love. As the weeks passed, the tension between Ethan and Clara began to thaw. Their conversations moved from guilt and regret to shared laughter over Leo's antics and genuine discussions about their future. Ethan saw the strength, intelligence, and grace that had first captivated him a decade ago, now seasoned by years of solo sacrifice. One Friday night, after they had opened Clara's new savory pie spot stand, a huge success, they were sitting on the porch of the new house. Leo was asleep inside. I have something I should have done 10 years ago, Ethan murmured, turning to her. What is it, Ethan? He reached out and gently took her hand, his thumb tracing the wedding ring he no longer wore. I never stopped thinking about you. Not really. I just put a successful life, a safe life, between us. And I've regretted that every single day of the last decade. Clara looked at their joined hands, then into his eyes. I never stopped loving the man who saw me when I was just a waitress, Ethan. But that man left. He came back, he said softly. He came back, and he's not leaving this time. I want to build a real family with you, Clara. Not just for Leo, but for us. Clara leaned in, resting her head on his shoulder. We're going slow, remember? Ethan smiled, kissing the top of her head. As slow as you need. But know this, I've found my home, and it's right here, with my family, selling the world's best savory pies. He looked up at the stars above Savannah, feeling a deep sense of peace he hadn't known, even during his biggest corporate successes. He had left a kingdom to find his true treasure. Do you want to continue the story? Perhaps focusing on Ethan's business partner's reaction to his sudden disappearance? Or the first major holiday they spend as a newly reunited family? The Savannah wedding. The Thanksgiving celebration solidified their bond, but Ethan knew he wanted more than just cohabitation. He wanted a lifetime commitment. He wanted to give Clara the public recognition and stability she deserved. And he wanted Leo to see their family cemented in love. One chilly evening in early December, as Clara was tallying the successful daily sales from her savory pie spot stand, Ethan approached her on the newly refurbished porch. I have a confession to make, Ethan began, holding a velvet box. I bought this years ago, back when I was still married, when my life felt utterly hollow. I was dreaming of a woman who was light and life, a woman who brought sunshine to the humid heat of Savannah. He knelt down on one knee, ignoring the protests from his old stiff joints. That woman was you, Clara. I chose fear and obligation back then, and I lost 10 years of my life and my son's life because of it. Now, I choose you. I choose Leo. I choose this life." He opened the box. Inside lay a simple yet elegant diamond ring. Classic, much like Clara herself. "Clara Miller, will you marry me? I don't want a Chicago spectacle. I want a quiet life with you. I want to build a real, forever home right here." Clara was speechless, tears streaming down her face. She pulled him up and hugged him tightly. "Yes, Ethan. Oh, yes. I want that forever home with you." A simple ceremony. They decided on a simple, low-key ceremony the following weekend. The wedding wasn't a corporate event. It was a heartfelt family gathering. The location? The very central square where Ethan had first seen Leo selling his pies. The guest list was small. David, Ethan's now supportive business partner, flew down as the best man, and Clara's mother and a few close neighbors attended. Leo was, of course, the ring bearer and the most important person in attendance. Clara wore a beautiful light ivory dress she found in a small local boutique. Ethan wore a suit, but his tie was slightly crooked, a small sign of his nervousness and his embrace of imperfection. As Clara walked toward him, Ethan forgot about his entire empire. All he saw was the woman who had fought for their son and had given him a second chance. The most moving moment came during the vows. Ethan looked into Clara's deep brown eyes. "I promise to honor your strength, your independence, and your love. I promise to be the father Leo deserves and the partner you need. My greatest achievement isn't a billion-dollar company. It's standing here today, with you." The vow of three. After they exchanged rings, the officiant asked for Leo to step forward. Ethan and Clara each took one of Leo's small hands. "We aren't just marrying each other today," Ethan said, looking down at his beaming son. "We are forming a triangle of love, and triangles are the strongest shape." Leo smiled, the radiant, unburdened smile that Ethan had first seen under the hot Savannah sun. "So, we're stuck together forever?" Clara laughed, leaning down to kiss her son's cheek. "Forever, my love. Forever." The reception was held right there at the savory pie spot. They served Clara's famous meat pies and champagne. Ethan, the former titan of Chicago finance, spent the evening pouring drinks and talking about the weather with Clara's neighbors. For the first time, he felt genuinely integrated, truly accepted not for his wealth, but for his heart. Later, as the sun set over the square, painting the sky in colors of orange and pink, Ethan watched Clara and Leo laughing together. He reached for Clara's hand, the simple band now gleaming on her finger. "Welcome to your new life, Mr. Miller," Clara whispered, resting her head on his shoulder. Ethan squeezed her hand, looking at the vibrant, messy, beautiful life he had almost thrown away. "It's better than I ever dreamed, Mrs. Miller. Thank you for not giving up on me." What should happen next in their story? We could explore the next business venture. Ethan helps Clara expand the savory pie spot into a local franchise. A romantic honeymoon. A brief, much-needed escape for Ethan and Clara. Perhaps back to the place of Ethan's corporate power, but seen through a new lens. The new addition. The possibility of expanding their family. A honeymoon in Chicago. After their simple and beautiful wedding, Ethan insisted on a short, romantic escape. Just for them. He chose a place that held both powerful memories and stark contrast to their life in Savannah. Chicago. "We're going to my old stomping ground," Ethan told Clara, smiling. "But this time, it's not a business trip. It's a tour of what I gave up and what I found." They left Leo in the capable hands of Clara's mother, promising a suitcase full of souvenirs. The city through new eyes. Eyes in Chicago, Ethan and Clara stayed in a lavish penthouse suite, a stark difference from their cozy, humble home. Yet everything felt alien to Ethan. The city's energy, once exhilarating, now seemed frantic and hollow. On their first day, Ethan took Clara to the gleaming glass and steel skyscraper that housed the headquarters of Miller Global. He led her up to his old corner office, a monument to his former life. Clara walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out over the sprawling metropolitan landscape. "It's enormous, Ethan," she said softly. "You built an empire." "I did," he agreed, standing behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "But look closely, Clara. Everyone down there is rushing, looking stressed. I used to be one of them. I used to think the view from the top meant I was winning." He gently turned her to face him. "The real victory isn't in this view. It's in the view from our porch in Savannah, watching Leo draw and seeing you smile without effort. This office is just a memory now. You, Leo, and our life. That's my headquarters." A rediscovered passion. The honeymoon wasn't about business. It was about reclaiming the lost passion they had buried under years of distance and duty. They spent their days like typical tourists, visiting museums, laughing over crowded street food, and walking hand in hand through frozen parks. The irony of their situation, a billionaire escaping his own wealth, was not lost on them. They were rediscovering each other's simple pleasures, those quick, intense feelings they'd shared a decade ago, now matured into a deep, resilient love. One evening, at a quiet dinner, Clara reached across the table. "I know this city represents a lot of pain and sacrifice for you, Ethan. But I also see the man here who is driven and successful. Don't throw away that part of yourself entirely. Use that drive to be the best father and husband." Ethan nodded, truly hearing her. He realized his escape didn't require him to reject his ambition, but merely to redirect it. He could use his resources to ensure their new life was secure and fulfilling. The future of Savory Pies. Before leaving Chicago, Ethan held a surprise meeting with his trusted partner David in a private room at a quiet restaurant. He didn't discuss Miller Global's stocks. He discussed Clara's Savory Pies. "I want to put the Savory Pie spot on the map," Ethan explained, presenting a simple marketing plan drawn up on a napkin. "The product is incredible. The story is authentic. I want to use my business network to find investors and open 4 more locations in Savannah and maybe the wider state of Georgia." David stared, bewildered, then burst out laughing. "A Savory Pie franchise? You've gone completely soft, Ethan." "Maybe," Ethan conceded. "But this business is different. It's Clara's dream, and it's Leo's legacy. It's built on family, not speculation. I'm not looking for a quick profit. I'm looking to build something meaningful from the ground up with my family." David, seeing the genuine excitement in Ethan's eyes, finally relented. He was still a businessman, and the concept, coupled with Ethan's resources, was sound. "All right, Ethan, consider Miller Global your first angel investor. We'll start with Savannah." Leaving Chicago, Ethan didn't feel the usual sense of duty or relief. He felt a deep sense of purpose. He was returning to his new home, ready not just to live, but to build. A business, a future, and a legacy rooted in love and warm, handmade savory pies. Where should the story go next? We can explore the execution of their new plan, the entrepreneurial launch. Ethan and Clara launched their first franchise location and faced the challenges of mixing love and business. A new addition. Clara and Ethan consider expanding their family, bringing a new dynamic to the Miller household. The entrepreneurial launch back in Savannah. The honeymoon glow didn't fade. It simply shifted into high-gear business planning. Ethan immediately began applying the ruthlessness of Chicago finance to the humble world of savory pies. He realized that expanding Clara's business was less about profit and more about Leo's future and his family's legacy. The first franchise. Ethan quickly secured prime real estate for the first expansion. He used his influence to negotiate better deals, but he insisted that the core spirit of the savory pie spot remain intact. The new location, unlike the humble kiosk, was a bright, cozy storefront, but still featured the colorful, hand-painted aesthetic of the original stall. The biggest challenge wasn't the money. It was the merger of corporate culture and family tradition. "We need a standardized recipe and cost analysis, Clara," Ethan explained one afternoon, holding a detailed spreadsheet. "We can't just wing it. We need consistency for franchising." Clara was protective of her craft. "My recipe is in my heart, Ethan. It's a little of this, a little of that. It's what makes them special. You can't put love on a spreadsheet." Ethan sighed, recognizing the passion that fueled her. "You're right, my love. We won't quantify the love, but we will quantify the salt and the pepper. We'll call it the heart and hustle method. You perfect the heart. I'll handle the hustle." They spent weeks together in the kitchen, a stark contrast to Ethan's old life. He meticulously measured ingredients, turning Clara's intuitive magic into a replicable formula. Clara, meanwhile, taught him the rhythm of the kitchen, the timing, the heat, the art of customer service that no business school could teach. They found a new, deeper intimacy in this shared work. Leo's role and the core mission. Now 9.5, became their official taste tester and morale officer. He loved the new storefront and often proudly told customers, "My mom makes these, and my dad is learning how to count the cheese." Ethan made sure the business wasn't just about revenue, it was about the community. He established a program where a portion of the profits went to a local school fund, and he hired teenagers from the neighborhood who reminded him of Leo's own drive. One evening, after closing the second new location, Ethan leaned against the counter, exhausted, but happy. "We made over $20,000 today, Clara," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. Clara smiled, wiping flour from her cheek. "That's wonderful, honey. Did you notice Leo gave Mrs. Henderson an extra pie because her dog was with her? That's the real win." Ethan realized that Clara had quietly shifted his definition of success. He was still building an empire, but this one was measured in community impact, shared pride, and the joy on his son's face. The unexpected challenge. As the business began to flourish, an unexpected complication arose. The demanding schedule. Late nights developing recipes, early mornings managing deliveries, started to strain their home life. One night, Ethan came home from a late investor call to find Clara asleep at the kitchen table, a smudge of dough on her forehead. Leo was quietly reading in the living room. "Dad," Leo whispered, "you guys are busy a lot now. I miss playing basketball." The words hit Ethan harder than any market crash. He had escaped the trap of Chicago, only to build a new trap in Savannah. He gently carried Clara to bed, then sat down next to Leo. "You're right, buddy. We got carried away with the hustle. I promise we'll fix it." The next morning, Ethan made a drastic decision. He hired a trusted operations manager to handle the day-to-day logistics, freeing up his and Clara's time. He was learning that the most valuable thing he owned wasn't his money or his businesses. It was his time with his family. "I can buy anything, Clara," he told her over coffee. "But I can't buy back 5 minutes of Leo's childhood. The business will grow, but not at the expense of our home. We built this family. We run the business, not the other way around." Clara looked at him, her eyes full of love and admiration. "That's the most valuable thing you've said since you came back to Savannah, Ethan." With their priorities realigned, the Miller family embraced their dual role, running a successful, growing business and fiercely protecting the quiet, beautiful life they had fought so hard to create.